Hey, everybody. I just want to thank you real quick for checking out this podcast. This is a brand new podcast. Brand new. Got the brand new podcast smell and everything. We're calling it The Conversationalists with John and Niko. And basically what we were doing, basically what we did today is we just talked about everything. We didn't want to hold back for you. And we didn't want to hold back on each other. You know, we talked a little bit about life. We talked a little bit about death. We talked a little bit about music. We talked a little bit about anal fisting. It was a great show.
We did talk about anal fisting, didn't we?
We sure did.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Anyways, that's what we want to do for you. We want to just talk a little bit about everything. And, you know, we want it to be, therapeutic and freeing for us, because this is all stuff that we're going to be living out, and we want you to be entertained, and want you to enjoy it. We want you to relate. Basically, we want this to be something for everybody. You know what I mean? This isn't just two people sitting in a living room, with a very poor setup.
Well, it is.
It is, but it isn't. But we want you guys to enjoy this, and we hope you do enjoy it. Basically, we're going to keep this going as long as we can, and, we'll release this to you whichever way we can, and we hope that you enjoy it.
Welcome to The Conversationalist.
I think it says something that in my coffee cup I have Sunny Delight and booze, and in your coffee cup you have actual coffee.
No, right. And what's funny is it's not even a coffee cup.
Well, mine legitimately looks like a coffee cup, and yours doesn't, but you have... Does it matter what's on the outside? It only matters what's on the inside, right?
Well, I guess it depends on,
the substance.
Right.
Which, before we get into this, I think it's only right that we do a clinky, even though you drink all of your drink.
I didn't drink all my drink.
You still got something in you. Okay, let's go ahead and get a clink.
Yeah, I got... There we go.
Clink.
Mine didn't... It didn't clink because it's plastic.
So, I had something that happened to me today that I wanted to share with you, and I feel like it will sort of come full circle with another thing that I want to bring up. So, a coworker of mine, she recently had her mom pass away, and she's a little bit on the older side. So It was kind of one of those inevitable things, I suppose, since death eventually comes to all of us. But it was approaching to her pretty quickly. I met her once, and she kind of seemed like she was drifting on and off here and there, and it was kind of hard to be around. I mean, not be around her, but it was kind of hard to see her and see her daughter, which is the woman that I work with, kind of around each other, because it sort of just seems like they both know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's one of those tough things that you sort of have to deal with.
Right.
But her mom actually passed away, I want to say, maybe a week or two ago, and she's been gone. And today was the first day that I saw her. And actually, I think today was her first day back. And we sent her a card, we sent her flowers, all the stuff that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I saw her, and I was like, I have this feeling inside of me, like I just want to hug her, and I just want to tell her, hey, I've been thinking about you, whatever. But I didn't.
Right.
I didn't know if it was appropriate, because whenever you think about when someone goes through stuff like that,
well, sometimes you don't want to bring it up.
Yeah, exactly. But what I was thinking is, people they start something and then they finish something on their own terms.
Yeah.
Psychologically, whenever it comes to stuff like that, and by the time they come to a finish or a close to that part, that grievance period, who knows if someone coming up to you and saying, hey, I'm real sorry about your loss, that just starts the cycle all over again.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that person. But every time I'd see her, I'd just look her right in the eyes, and everything that I was just saying, I was like, I'm glad you're back. I'm really sorry about what happened. I was thinking about you. It's really hard, how you decide to open up to someone. I mean, a coworker is a coworker. Essentially, a coworker is kind of like, a high school friend that you don't go anything further than high school with.
Right.
Like, you see them, you're around each other for a set period of time, and then when you aren't around that person anymore, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They only exist in that tiny part of your life, but then you decide to open up, and then eventually, you become the bestest of friends like you and I did.
Right.
But
depends on how far you want to go with it,
Right. But that's a hard thing to tell, like how you want to unfold, and let out with someone who you only know in really one aspect,
right.
in the work aspect, in the work environment. But that sort of got me thinking that, life and death, it's something that happens, and death is going to come to us. So why bother putting up that wall?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why bother living in like a fear bubble, or you know what I'm trying to get at? Like,
right.
Why bother? You should be open to everything. You should be open to every possibility, every kind of relationship, unless you just absolutely know they're a shitty person. Like, I've seen so many shitty people, as I'm sure you've seen shitty
right.
people, and you're like, nope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
well, this is the only life that we're guaranteed to have. Everything else is based on faith.
Exactly.
But
I just was thinking, why do we live in that sort of fear? You know what I mean? Is there a fear of unraveling a part of yourself that you're afraid to unravel? Are you afraid to embrace someone else's imperfections and have that sort of thing dragging along with you for the rest of your life? It's a lot of crazy things to think of whenever you decide to open up and to connect with people. But in the same sense, it's the most warm feeling in the world to know that you have someone else's heart with you as well as yours.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a song that I have that I want to share. The song is called Undone, by the band A Message to Bears, and we're going to listen to that right now real quick.
All right.
I feel like that song kind of goes through a cycle of life. Like, there's a genuine, like, sincerity. There's genuine, like, warmth. But then as it kind of goes along, it almost feels like there's, like, what's the word I want to go with? It almost feels like it's just the cycle of, like, of a relationship. It starts off really warm and exciting. I mean, not exciting, like explosions and blah, 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 but butterflies and, you know, fireworks on the inside, you know?
Yeah.
But then eventually, as time goes by and as time fades and as we begin to fade and we change, it sort of just drifts away.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that song, whenever I listen to that song, because it's all the same thing.
Right.
There's nothing different about it. Maybe just little vocal melodies here and there.
There's volume differences.
And at the end they kind of changed up a little bit, like little, maybe not as high notes as they would, but
right.
I think there's something about the repetition that really, like, kind of sinks in a little bit more.
Right.
I think repetition can.
It's part of the cycle.
Yeah.
Right. I dig that sound. I mean, it's kind of a comforting thing. It's one of those spiritual, ambient, you know, but simple acoustic songs, you know.
Yeah.
Something about the simplicity is what kind of makes it shine in its own way.
I think music like that, I mean, they don't have to be anything too crazy.
Right.
I think
it's about how it makes you feel. And that one really captures, you know, all sorts of feelings. But to me, like, it hit kind of a comfort in whatever you're doing. Comfort in everything. Everything's going to be okay. Shit, even if you die.
Yeah. Because every little thing. Come on, John.
It's gonna be all right.
That should have been my song, not this sappy shit. We should have been playing Bob Marley.
Yeah. Which brings us to the next one. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, as far as the idea of, like, life and death and of, you know, you eventually have to let go of those fears. I feel like letting go is an ongoing trend that I'm currently going through.
Right.
Where, you know, I have to let go of my fear of failure. I have to let go of my fear of being judged. I have to let go of, you know, all these things inside of me to eventually where I could feel free, you know, which is something that I've never felt before. And, you know, I don't know if it's something that I've just been programmed as a kid to constantly be in fear, or if it's like society these days pointing the big finger on me as, oh, you're an adult, you need to be doing this here and that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think letting go is a big thing that we eventually have to do before we go.
Right.
Because if we keep holding on to certain things, you know, we're going to go, but somebody's never going to be able to have a part of you with them.
Right. Well, in my opinion, I kind of believe all life is, you know, I don't believe, you know, there's a purpose set, but I think what there is, you know, what we should make out of life is happiness.
Right.
And I don't mean pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not talking about the lusty aspect of happiness. I mean the real deep happiness that comes from love.
Right.
You know, loving, you know, your neighbor, so to speak.
The love that you get from, you know, frolicking in a field of sun daisies while holding your lover's hand, not the kind of, you know, happiness you get from two chicks at one time.
You know, even if you're alone in the field, you know, it's the connection with nature, you know. Not necessarily a spiritual connection, but even a physical aspect of it, just a psychological connection.
Yeah. Have you ever like stood in a field and then you just sort of like danced with the wind, like, well, like I used to, like.
Do I have to answer that?
Well, hold on, let me finish. Let me tell my story. Like, my dad has this ranch in the middle of fucking nowhere, and trees all around us. And someday, like, I was maybe like 14 or 15, which was kind of a weird time in my life, as I'm sure it is for any human being, male or female,
right?
Or transgender. I don't want to dismiss the transgender listeners. We love you, and God loves you too. But anyways, so I was I was 14 or 15, and I was just standing outside, and there's trees everywhere, and he's got about like maybe 9 acres or so. Not a lot of land, but to a young mind, it's a whole lot of land. And I was just sort of standing outside, and I saw the trees, and there was this cool breeze just going by, just real nice, calm. It's in the middle of nowhere, so there's no cars, there's no traffic, there's no, people crossing the street. Hey, fuck off! Nothing like that. It's just nature. It's beautiful. And I saw these trees just going left and right because of the wind. And I just sort of closed my eyes and I just sort of breathed. And I moved my head left and right with the trees. And it feels like maybe I was too young to even understand what I was doing or what I was going through. But I really do think I was having a spiritual experience with nature. Whether I even if I had no idea what was going on, maybe I didn't need to. Maybe I just needed to just be in that moment.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that the exact same thing has happened to you because you weren't in that field with me.
Right, no.
But, I mean, has anything like that ever happened to you?
Oh, surely. I mean, I feel as if, my mind notices certain, similarities in how the music is played in my headphones.
Yeah.
To what's going on in my physical world, as I listen to really calm music, or really any music, you can start to see certain undertones in nature.
Yeah.
Like the wind in general is on beat with everything.
Yeah.
That natural aspect of life, while I don't believe it's anything, supernatural to any means, there's something about it or what the mind perceives, I think that we've evolved to the point of where we are, to where we find beauty in things because that's part of our brains that help us seek happiness and find point on this planet, which I believe is something that we need. We need to have something to live for, whether it, exists or not. Just the parts of our brain. I think, it's when you look at everything and how the earth works and you see how beautiful it is, I think a lot of that is our programming. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think to see it from an outsider's eye, it would look probably ugly as shit.
Right.
But it's impossible for us to know because we have that bias built in.
Yeah.
But, with that specific sort of phenomena, I embrace it. I really dig it. I like magic shows. I like listening to music, which is one of the biggest forms of phenomena for me, because, there is things physically going on. There are levels and frequencies, but for me to avoid all that and to see past it and just look at the pictures beyond the pixels,
right,
is, it's fun and it does improve that happiness, even if I realize that it's all pixels.
Exactly. I think music has always been a tool to do something greater than what it was maybe even meant for.
Right.
When
More than entertainment.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, my mom will tell me the story of when, I was maybe 4 or 5, maybe 4 years old. We'll go with 4 for the sake of the story. And Guns N' Roses, November Rain.
Oh,
you know the song.
I know the song.
Okay, so Guns N' Roses, November Rain would come on MTV back when MTV was fucking good. It would come on MTV, and she tells me that I would just be in awe. Like, I would just be, like, in a trance. Like, I would just be staring, just locked onto the TV, And I remember images, I'm a little kid, of seeing a guy on a mountain playing a guitar and then seeing a guy dive over a piano at one point. I remember these images but not knowing what they were.
Right.
But those things stuck with me, and the song stuck with me to where I heard it a few years later.
Right.
And I remembered every bit.
Right.
I remembered every line. I remember every melody. I remember everything. Like, it planted a seed in me. And then whenever I came back to it, it revealed itself again to me. And I know this is sounding corny as fuck, but it was like seeing an old friend again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, when I've listened to songs 10 years ago, okay, and then I would listen to them yesterday, and it was the exact same emotion. It was the exact same experience as it was the very first time.
Isn't that the greatest feeling in the world?
It's the greatest feeling, but it's the scariest feeling because it's like, it's like it's always with you. It never leaves you, and it never goes away. It just remains with you always. And though it's not, maybe scare wasn't the right word to say, but it's this weird thing that things stay with you. Overwhelming. It was overwhelming because you don't think about it, but it's there.
Right. It's insane. It shows us right there how giant our minds are.
Right.
How much they can really hold, because you are sitting there thinking all the time that there's so much information that you know in your brain, and then something sneaks up on you, like you see that music video and you're like, holy shit, fucking Slash on the train tracks, I forgot about that. Oh, I remember it now. I feel it, and all of that. Oh god. First of all, we could have an entire podcast on that music video. that did a lot for me, you know, growing up, that specific song. And to be honest, I love the ending of the song, which sounds nothing like the rest of the song.
Right.
And I don't even think radio versions have the ending.
Probably not, no.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
What exactly are you talking
about? It's like, everybody needs someone, and everybody needs some time. And
yeah, I remember that part.
Oh, man. That's my favorite part.
Right. I was just always a fan of Slash and his guitar playing, but his solos. I think he was he's always been the epitome of cool,
right,
as far as a guitar player goes. But
Axl being the opposite,
right? You can't be cool and fish dance at the same time. That's fucking impossible.
Well,
did you know that he was ranked the #1 greatest singer in heavy metal?
With what? The Onion?
I don't know if it was the Onion. I don't want to slam the magazine that did that vote, but someone actually voted
I would.
Axl Rose as the #1 heavy metal singer. I think he was like right above like Iron Maiden and
fuck all that. Oh, Iron Maiden is phenomenal. I'm not a big fan of Iron Maiden, but whenever it comes to vocals, Axl doesn't have shit.
No.
On the whole Iron Maiden, I wish I could produce the name of the singer. I can't off the top of my head. Yeah, the singer. Yeah, the guy with vibrato.
Yeah.
Axl, I heard that through the grapevine the other day that Axl and Slash are going to get together and do a reunion.
They are, and I know that this is a perfect opportunity for 40-year-olds to relive their glory days.
Right. I'll be there too.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely be there.
I want to go for the sheer fact that we've got a possible fight, a fist fight on stage. That's what I'd be happy to see.
Yeah.
Probably off stage too, because old metal rednecks.
But just imagine like this, like I have like relatives, not direct family, but relatives that still live in the 80s today. Like, they still do the whole foofy hair, and they still claim that the 80s was the greatest music scene in the whole world or whatever. I mean, to each his own.
Exactly, I agree with that.
You know what I mean? I mean, they love the 80s. That was a big time in their life, just like the 90s were probably a big time in our life. Understandable. But they stay in that mindset of as 80s, and they're probably on their way to close to 50 years old now.
Right.
And they're going to go to the show and they're going to be in like their leather, like jean jacket and saggy
yoga pants.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible in an audience, because like young dudes like us, we're going to go because, we were kids when it came out. So we enjoyed it, because our parents played it, our family played it. We saw it in MTV. It was probably just as much important to us as was to them, later on in their music career. But still, it had an impact on us. So we're all gonna go, but we've been influenced by other bands. We've been influenced by the 2000 decade of music, which is complete, opposite. Man, to a degree, it's definitely not the 80s.
Well, okay, with the 80s.
Right.
I think it was phenomenal. I think it was great. Okay. But maybe fashion was fucked up.
Okay.
I would say the way that they look, unfortunately, does affect the sound when you put it together. But if you throw all that aside and you're just listening to the music, at least the point before they really sold out and just, one band would have a ballad.
Yeah.
They all jumped on train
Right.
with that shit. And that's what ruined them because their ballads were freaking terrible.
Right. Okay. I respect your opinion, as I've always have, but I respectfully disagree with your opinion.
Okay.
I hate the 80s, okay? Now, granted, I was born the very last month of the very last year of the 80s, but technically I'm still an 80s kid, okay?
You were at the last month of the last year?
December 1st, 89, okay? So, last month of the last year. So, I fall in that category.
You're still an 80s baby.
But that kind of ties in with why I don't like the 80s, okay? I think that the 80s was just desperately trying to be cool.
Okay.
This is why, okay? You listen to this song. Okay, it kind of goes along with what you just said. Everybody was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to fit in by peer pressure. Tell me that's not
it's labels shit.
Well, not even that.
I'm sure, yeah, peer pressure.
I'm sure the labels have a point because back in those were like the music glory days where labels, were actually worth something. But
right.
I think it was everyone just wanted to be cool, and the idea of being cool was way more important back than it is now. Right. Like it's cool to be uncool now. Like
right. Yeah. We got nerds.
Yeah.
So to speak, that have more street cred.
Right.
Nowadays.
What's the Huey Lewis song? It's hip to be square. That's a legit thing. It's cool to be uncool, Right. But back in those days,
this is why I have my popularity now.
Exactly. But that intrigues me to desperately want to be accepted, desperately want to be seen as cool. That's why you see all those bands, they had all of the makeup and all the crazy. Right. They wanted to be seen completely different, but they wanted you to think of them as cool.
It was a lot less subjective. Cool was a tangible thing in the 80s, and nowadays cool is only what you think is cool, which is what I admire the most, and exactly a lot of the reason why the 80s did suck.
80s
so to speak. But
that we can agree on.
There were things in the 80s that did not suck.
Like what?
Synthesizers.
Okay, I'll agree with you on that. I mean, I could listen to The Cure and Depeche Mode and all that.
There was a lot of great music in the 80s. Probably not as much as 90s, in my opinion. I really felt for alternative grunge stuff whenever it came out. That's really more my language than any other kind of music. But 70s were particularly awesome, and 80s had its rad moments. Honestly, but the ugliness of the 80s is a lot of what I want to tag along with Penholder. I want to have that look on my album. The fucking pink fucking...
Like the Saved by the Bell type
Saved by the Bell, exactly. Feel to it. Yeah.
Is this part of you just trying to be cool?
Right. No, and it's actually the opposite to me. It's just so ugly. It's a grotesque thing. Mm-hmm. When you look back at it, and I think that it's a common concept, not just with me, but I think it's a part of I just kind of want to indulge in it because nobody else is.
Right.
And it's something that I like to do. I like that obscurity.
Right. Are you going to try and bring it back so that everyone else is doing it? Or?
No, it's a comical aspect to it.
Oh, okay.
I've always wanted a comedy undertone without with being able to go about lyrics in a serious manner. Mm-hmm. Even if there were some just funny as hell undertones in the background that nobody really gets. Stinkfist from Tool.
Right.
You listen to that and it's not funny. It's just, it is what it is. It's a serious song because it's fucking Tool and you see a serious side. You go into the details of the lyrics from Stinkfist, it's all about anal fisting. There's no way about it. That's so comedic and so genius for Maynard.
Because anal fisting is kind of funny when you think.
It is funny. When you think of a serious song, whenever it's like elbow deep within the borderline, this may hurt a little, but it's something you'll get used to. Relax, turn around and take my hand.
Is that really how he sings it?
It's close enough.
Okay.
I wasn't going to show off, so you
okay.
know.
Thank you for holding back on that.
I was holding back a little bit,
but okay, I could see that. You know, like the whole comedy aspect. I mean, it kind of makes me think of like whenever Blink-182. Like this is kind of stuff that I always think, like when Blink-182 first came out and they had Enema of the State.
right?
It was okay. The movie was called Enemy of the State.
Right.
They're calling it Enema of the State. That's
Right,
supposed
but
to be funny.
They weren't quite as subtle about their comedy,
Right. They had a song that they were like, "I want to fuck a dog in the ass." If I'm correct.
I think they were serious about that.
I think so. But yeah, they were like pretty like I think they were a pretty comical band, you know, as far as like obscurity and like, whoa, did he really just say that? Like, you know.
Right.
But I think later on, whenever they turn into the semi-serious band that they were, they would still bring those ones back.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of weird to take it in, like you hear like this band singing, you know, "I Miss You" or any of their other pop hits, and then at the end they'd play some punk rock. "I want to fuck a dog in the ass," da, 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 you know, some really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was all. I mean, you got to play the hits that the fans want to hear, you know. And I guess that was one of the hits, but I think they were still just trying to do what you're trying to do, as far as like bring back something kind of obscure and crazy.
Right.
You know, but it be something that we can laugh at.
Right. Well, I mean, even Marilyn Manson with his golden age of grotesque, he was bringing back the grotesque aspect of the 20s.
Was that the one with the white suit with the boobies? Or
no, that was Mechanical Animals.
Oh, okay. See, that's where I got into him.
You know,
I know you're a big fan of his.
I'm big. I've read his autobiography and I've listened to every album. That doesn't mean everything. But I do like the older Marilyn Manson, and it was kind of like in the earlier aspect of his career that I really enjoyed. But after that, I just, you know, once he got, you know, I can respect him for doing what he did. He went and did his own music, his own blues kind of music, and, you know, put his middle finger up at the labels and in a certain way, you know, because he's starting to do something he wants to do. I respect that wholeheartedly, but I just don't like it.
Right.
I guess I like what the mess.
Do you almost feel like Marilyn's turning into like, okay, you have like a classic rock band,
right?
Like, let's just think of one that has like a really big, like, okay, Journey, for instance.
Okay,
they have that song. I don't even remember the name. What's the damn song that Journey sings?
Don't Stop Believing.
Don't Stop Believing. They have that song. That's the hugest hit they've probably ever done. Right. They still play that song today.
Right.
Okay. Now, but they don't just go rehashing their old hits from back in the day. They're coming up with new songs.
Okay.
You know, so they'll play, if they were to play a show at the old carnival, you know, or wherever they would get a gig, and, you know, like, "Hello, Huntsville, you know, we just put out a whole new album, and, you know, we're gonna play some new songs for you," and then, you know, they play these songs, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, that's not Journey.
But that's true to them, because they're doing the songs, they're writing the songs that they want to write, and that they're using their abilities and their personalities to create these songs. They're unleashing parts of their souls into music form, but everyone just thinks it's complete shit.
Right.
And they're only one, play the song, and they, just small town girl. You know, that was fucking high. Why did I sing that? But
that was awesome. Maybe you should take that on the road, man.
But you know what I'm saying? Do you think like he's becoming that way? Like,
well, there's different ways that you can take it. I mean, you can say, you know, they're being egotistical, they're not giving back to the people. But at the same time, man, sometimes music is therapy for your soul.
yeah,
You know, you're the one buying it. That's your fucking choice. You know, it's I think that Marilyn Manson's probably going in that same kind of direction, but I think at the same time, when you do a show, you've got to play some of your old hits. I mean, I think it was Willie Nelson that said something like that. If you write a song, you better think about how much you're going to enjoy playing it a billion times.
right.
Because you never know what's going to take off.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's singing On the Road Again.
Yeah.
For the rest of his fucking life, at least in, you know, in his career, you know, because I mean, it's not about making that money, so to speak, but it is about making people happy.
Yeah.
You know, especially your fans, people who've been there by your side, people who have supported you, who have paid for all your shit. I can tell you right now, I'd be playing my old, you know, whatever I had, you know, just to make everybody happy. But I'm not going to only play that.
Right.
I'm going to play mostly what I've got new that, you know, I want to give out or what speaks my soul. It just depends on what it is, but I'm going to make everybody happy and, you know, idealistically is what I do.
Now, what do you think about people that go to shows and they leave pissed off because the band only played the new hits? You know what I mean? Because like I recently saw like someone say, like they posted like pictures and videos, like they went to I want to say it was Shine Down, or I think it was Shine Down,
right?
And she was like, "God, I was so pissed off. They only played the new songs."
Okay, well, ultimately they're artists,
yeah,
and they've got something they want to paint for you,
yeah.
So you're not gonna have the same person painting the same fucking picture for you. You know, they want to show you something new. You know, it's something you should take as a treat when they play their old stuff for you. But ultimately, you don't have a right to be pissed off. What you're paying for is a ticket to go see them and what they have to offer you.
Right. I mean, I agree. I think it's all a lot of selfishness, and it's all a lot of like.
And I was upset whenever I've seen a lot of my favorite bands, you know, but I'm not mad at them.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to go and hear certain songs from Deftones that they didn't play. I wanted to go and hear certain songs from, you know, Nine Inch Nails, didn't get played. What was the last band I saw? Slipknot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slipknot and Lamb of God. There were songs that I loved. I would have loved to hear these songs. They didn't play them. It aggravated me because I wanted to see that. And it's ultimately something within myself.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have had those kinds of expectations in the first place.
Right.
But, you know, I should have gone there just to see the art. And I was fucking happy as hell. It was a great show. I didn't go there pissed off at Slipknot or Lamb of God or whatever just because they didn't play my favorite jams. They played awesome songs. I've seen bands like Soundgarden.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I saw Nine Inch Nails, I went to the show to see Nine Inch Nails because that's one of my top 5 at least bands to see, and it actually takes a lot to be in my top 5.
Right.
But I saw Soundgarden, which I've always dug and I've always had this interest in. I just didn't ever build them up like I would Nine Inch Nails. And there's only one song in the world that I cannot stand from Soundgarden, and it's Jesus Christ Pose.
I've never heard that one.
Okay, they played that song at the show, and it sounded fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was. You see the music video, and it's like, Why are they playing it when they've got so much skill? And you see it live, and it's like, God, this band is so badass. The only song I can't fucking stand from them, they did a fucking kick-ass job, and that's a great feeling. That entire show, Soundgarden Nine Inch Nails, was a peak experience for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've earned so much more respect for that band, Soundgarden, than I ever would have in the past.
Right. I just think that, you know, going to a show, that's probably, I mean, going to shows, that's supposed to be the one place that you can just unleash everything inside of you.
Right.
You know, like when we saw Slipknot, you know, like I've been to maybe a handful. I don't go to a lot of shows. I think there's purpose behind that, mostly because tickets are fucking expensive. But
that's a damn good purpose.
But I don't go to a lot of shows. But going to that one and knowing that this is probably going to be the heaviest show I ever go to in my life.
Oh, the Lamb of God Slipknot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably going to be the heaviest show I ever go to date. And so fuck it. I'm just going to unleash everything inside of me. And, you know, I didn't know a whole lot from Lamb of God except their one, what's that one hit that they do?
Smother another failure. Lay this to rest?
Yeah.
Lay to rest.
Lay to rest. Maybe because I think it was on Guitar Hero or something like that.
It's a good song.
It's a very popular song, you know, but I didn't know much by that. But then I saw them and I was just jumping and I was screaming. I was just having the time of my life. And then Slipknot showed up. And I've been listening to Slipknot since probably like 2000.
Yeah.
My brother had a burnt CD made and it had like maybe 3 songs by them. But
yeah, they started in 99,
yeah,
so
that's like prime.
Right, absolutely.
Prime years for Slipknot. But I would listen to them back in the day. And, you know, I was listening to everything back in the day. Like that mix CD that had Slipknot on it, it also had like Limp Bizkit on it. It also had like Eminem on it. It also had, you know, like Kitty on it. Like it had like a whole bunch of like real random shit.
That's not that random either. That for that time, that's what a new metalhead.
Okay. You're absolutely right. But you know, that's what I was listening to. So going from, it's kind of like what we were saying before about how music stays with you. The music stayed with me when they finished their show with Spit.
Yeah,
the Spit it out.
Yeah.
Na. I was fucking 10 years old again.
Yeah.
I was in my room with my headphones on,
right,
you know, headbanging right next to the CD player because, you know, you had to plug into the CD player.
Yeah.
And, you know, you couldn't go that far unless you'd pull out the plug or whatever.
You had a spot.
I had my spot and it was in my room. I had a tiny ass room next to my dresser, next to the door, you know. That's where I spent a good part of my young life. But listening to them play that song, I was like, fuck. Like, I couldn't believe it.
Right.
You know, I was expecting them, you know, finish with the hit. I was expecting them to finish it with Wait and Bleed. But they played Wait and Bleed like third or fourth song.
Right.
So I was like, I have no idea what to expect. But they finished that song, and I was just like, I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
It was so amazing.
Well, you know, I had that whole kid moment as well. You know, with that band, I couldn't tell you what year that it was, but it was in that prime era. I actually got a cassette tape from my dad.
Nice.
Who was on a construction site, and there was the tape was there. Apparently, one of the guys got fired, probably drug related shit. Right. Construction jobs.
Bunch of junkies.
He took home the CD or the tape, and on one side it was Slipknot, the self-titled album, and then the other side was Static X, the Wisconsin Death Trip, which was my favorite. Still by this day, my favorite album from Static X, and I didn't know the difference. That's how early I was into metal. You know, I could tell a little bit, but that was a deciding point for me to where I could start to really understand metal, because it's how I deciphered between the two bands and how I could tell the difference. And mentally, it was an ascension. You know, I moved up. It was transcendental in a sense. Right. But that is what I'd listen to whenever my mom told me to clean my room. I would stick the tape in, and then I had so much fucking energy. I mean, naturally, you know, I'm kind of an old slow guy. You know, I don't like to move around at all.
You've always been that way. You've always been that way.
Fuck you. I'm just kidding. No. I mean, I've got a natural laziness to me that I have to fight to do anything, you know, and I do, you know, whenever I do. But music has always been my inspiration for energy, and metal particularly is what gets me going. So that tape changed everything for me. I wouldn't even have to clean my room, and I'd stick it in there, and I'd just be sitting there working on moving shit around, and it was a drug for me.
Music is a drug, and I think it's all because it's I know close to nothing about music psychology and music therapy, but I do know that in our brains are these nerves that get stimulated
right
whenever we hear certain sounds, whenever we hear certain vibrations that come from notes.
Certainly.
So I think that obviously it can do the same thing as
a lot to do with memory too.
Yeah. This poses me to lead into my question that I ask: if it's even humanly possible, life without music. Okay. Now, what I'm saying, I know it's a crazy concept because music, it
would inevitably happen. Right.
You can create music out of anything,
right.
But I'm saying in the sense of you turn your jukebox on.
I think it'd be something else.
Do you think we would find something else to replace it?
I think we would.
Like?
Well, art, because that's what music is.
Mm-hmm.
Just be other forms of art. Interest in conversation.
Do you think that music is almost is a distraction?
Well, I think it can be,
because I could see I
don't think it's being used. I mean, I don't think there's the media pushing distractions out for everybody.
Right. But you said for a second, it would cause people to engage in conversation. Is that what you said?
Well, damn.
Or it would open conversation?
Just that concept right there. I didn't even think about it when I said it, but
see,
you might be onto something.
This is the thing, okay? I'll use myself as an example because there's only two of us in the room right now, but I'll use myself. I whenever I listen to music, it's almost like the whole world just sort of just turns off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there'd be days where I'd have a headphone in my ear while I'm at work, and I wouldn't even know that there's people walking by me. I would just sort of be in my own world while I was listening to music.
Right.
If I'm in my room and I have my headphones in and I'm just laying on my bed, floating around outer space with Carl Sagan, doing some trippy shit, who's to say that I'll ever come back from it? You know what I mean? Like, music takes you into those really weird places to where it shuts you completely off from the world.
Right. Well, another thing that you have to consider as well is when you have both of your headphones in, you're creating this deprivation.
Right.
In an auditory, and that's an entire sense.
Right.
I've listened to music in both headphones for a few hours, just straight going, like while I'm at work, and I start to get lightheaded.
Yeah.
And it's a weird feeling. I feel as if I'm about to pass out, and I have to unplug one of my ears.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird, but it is a very real thing.
Right.
So yeah, I had to totally get the whole different.
But what I'm getting at is how that can be used to distract you from ever communicating or talking to another person.
Right. It has an effect in general. But to be honest, I also think that a lot of the point in this world, is to feel happiness.
Right.
And nothing drops my serotonin and dopamine like a good rhythm.
Right.
So it is cutting off from the rest of the world and production and certain things that we do, but it also adds to it because I don't have to go looking for my happiness.
Right.
I don't have to strive to find something to do, because without it, I would have to look hard to reach, something to open up my, I think that maybe more people would be on drugs ultimately.
Right.
Without music, it'd be on another kind of drug. And, music is the best fucking drug there is.
Right.
Because it doesn't harm your body in a negative way.
Right. Well, I mean, I think if you go blaring it super loud, you'll eventually go deaf.
Certainly. Well, I mean, you have to have a brain. You have to know what to do,
I always thought that music was doing something to me whenever I would listen to it and maybe it was just right before I'd go to bed, but I would have both my earbuds in, and I would just lay on my back, and I would feel like I was in a dream state, in the sense that I could feel like my eyes kind of like not so much twitching, but just sort of like moving around, like maybe I was in my REM cycle or whatever.
Right.
And I was thinking, I'm perfectly awake right now.
Yeah.
But this is going on right now. What does this even mean? I still to this day don't even know what it means. But it always just caused me to think that the music was always just something a little bit extra special, a little bit extraordinary, and to just embrace it and just to take it in, you know, because there's a lot of things that, you know, I never get an explanation for. Like I don't understand why the Northern Lights Aurora Borealis type thing over in, I have no idea how that happens.
Right.
I'm sure
that's what phenomena is.
Yeah, I'm sure that someone could, you know, one of our listeners will call in to the phone line, which, by the way, call in at, no, I'm just kidding. Someone will tell me, oh, well, it's actually, you know, the sun and the moon, and they're doing all this, and it's radiation, and blah, blah, you know, they'll give me an explanation, but that will never diminish my perception of it whenever I see it, and how I think, wow, this is really beautiful. You know what I mean? Someone could tell me today, the reason that your eyes move whenever you're listening to music is because your brain is in so much of an active mode that it's causing it to happen. Someone could give me a full-on report,
right?
You know, 5-page double space, you know, Times Roman, you know, whatever.
Right.
They give me a full report about it. It would still mean nothing to me because when you're in that moment and you take it in and you,
like a rainbow,
like a double rainbow.
There's a science behind a rainbow, and it doesn't really take that much to understand, but at the same time, it's still kind of like a phenomenal feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty awesome. The thing is with the auras and the aura, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Aurora.
It's talking about Northern Lights.
Yeah.
Aurora Borealis.
Okay. Well, there's that and rainbows, you know, there are sciences behind that, but when we're talking about the brain and how it perceives music, that is untapped science.
Right.
There is science that goes so far, but with the brain, the complexity, you know, really anything organic, there is no full science on.
Right.
There's no full understanding. And it would kind of be biased for a brain to, you know, be talking about a brain.
Right.
For a brain to analyze a brain. It's kind of a biased aspect, you know. It's really hard for us to know all that there is because it's just an untapped science, which is phenomenal. Because in my opinion, I like the progression, you know. I like that there's more stuff that we can learn. Mm-hmm. I like that there's more of our universe that we don't understand. We don't know a percentage of what there is to know. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so much that we cannot figure out, which is pretty awesome because there's, you know, so much more that we get to experience.
Right. Do you think not knowing is just as amazing as knowing something? Like, we have no idea what's going on in outer space right now.
Right.
But in the same sense, it means anything could be happening.
Well, the only truth that I feel in any of the religions, the only thing that really speaks to me is a concept in Buddhism, which is what the 8 pillars are completely about. And it essentially, you know, boils down to the concept of ignorance is the cause of suffering.
Right.
So while I believe that ignorance is bliss to a certain degree, I think it's ultimately not beneficial.
Right. I
think it's ultimately what hurts us when we don't know shit. You know?
Absolutely.
So I think it's about also, I think we can embrace those same things that we wouldn't know, you know, like I'm talking about with music and the frequencies. I think it's equally as easy to embrace all of those qualities that come from music, whether we know that they're frequencies or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it does anything more beneficial for us to not know what's really going on behind the doors. But ultimately, from that happening, it at least tells us that it's not magic.
Right.
You know?
I agree with that, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think shit like that should be taught to people in
Right.
school.
Right.
I think okay, no, I'm not dogging cosmetology classes. I'm
Right.
not dogging woodshop classes. I'm not dogging any of those things, because people can take those classes and they can totally get a future.
Right.
You know, they can pay for the rest of their life with a
Right.
sort
Well, we
of trade.
should focus on careers specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think something that gets left out so much is just
Philosophy.
You know, making people excited to learn about things that nobody would ever think that they would know.
Right.
You know, like if I walked up to a guy and, you know, I was just trying to like look like a total sack of shit and I was just going to drop mad knowledge on him, like, yo, you know this, you know this, you know that. If you were to say to me, you know, actually I do, you know that this and, you know, this and this and that, I would just be like, holy shit, I did not see that coming.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that with philosophy in general, there's almost zero careers that come from that.
Right.
But there's benefit in being a great conversationalist
All right.
in every realm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's what that's good for. I think that philosophy is good for seeing an angle, a different angle, you know, which is perceptive.
Right.
Entirely. But at the same time, great for the whole conversationalist aspect.
I think philosophy is a fantastic profession for like professors.
That's about it.
That's probably about
Oh,
it.
and writers.
And writers too. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
But I mean, ultimately, those are also the great names through history, you know, Socrates, you know,
It's pronounced Socrates.
is it really?
No.
I didn't think so. Plato, you know,
Right.
which was I think he was a philosopher on molding clay.
Is he really?
Plato?
Everyone, just take a moment to yourselves to just shake your head no.
Face palm.
And I set it up too, man. I feel terrible for myself.
Is he?
We're both to blame for that one. But I mean, there's no excitement to learn those sort of things because there's no profession in them.
Right.
Other than, you know, nobody wants to be a sociology professor. You know, you
Right.
it's just sort of one of those things that just sort of comes along in your life. But no, there's no. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said, whenever the government shut down the NASA program,
Right.
which, I mean, obviously it kind of shows how dated this reference is, because this had to be a while ago.
Yeah.
But they stopped funding it, and
Right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, no kid is gonna aspire to be an astronaut anymore.
Right.
I mean, you think about it.
That's sad.
You,
Yeah.
you think about it. When we were kids, or at least when I was a kid, I don't know, with you get a box. What do you turn it into? You turn it into a race car. You turn it into a spaceship. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You put a fishbowl over your head.
Right.
You're an astronaut.
Well, exploration is friggin' amazing. That's what we have to offer for our future.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we make our mark as a society. Space exploration in general, or even deep sea exploration.
Right.
This is what we're going to be held to in the past. I mean, whenever people think back on us, you know, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us stand out. You know, the things that we do that were different from the past.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to be known for something other than just creation of the, you know, television, you know? But I mean, wouldn't it be nice to be the first, society to go to Mars, or, I don't know. I just think that that's a really important thing for us to fund, especially with the amount of money that's going to bullshit. And I'm not talking about, food stamps or anything like that, because I think that that's a valid source of where money should go as well, and health. I'm talking about the giant folders of money that the government doesn't tell us where it's going.
Right.
And that's evident in the death and taxes, files,
Yeah.
I mean, we have folders where all of this money is put into for secret shit that we're not supposed to know about, which is bullshit. Or, I mean, I think that if we're going to spend any money on military, which most of our money goes to military,
right?
I think if anything, it should just be defense.
Absolutely. And I don't think I don't want us to seem like we're against,
right?
Because I support the troops,
right? Right.
But I just hate it whenever I hear that, we're going into this country, we're going into this country, we're going into this country. Like, what about our fucking country? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm turning into fucking Bill O'Reilly now.
Right.
So
ultimately
I'm
together,
stop on that one.
Ultimately together, we have different opinions. So our podcast doesn't have a one opinion. And
no, of course not.
And we don't have a message that goes towards politics anyway, just individually as people. But I do think that, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where were we in conversation? How did we get into politics, man? How did this happen?
I don't know how any of this happens, but I feel like this is all kind of going full circle to what it was I said in the very beginning. Do you remember what I said in the very beginning?
The very beginning, we were talking about like death.
Not so much death. death was kind of a big pinpoint on what I was trying to say, but overall, what I was saying was letting go.
Right.
Think about everything. Eventually, that's what it all has to come down to.
Well, that's the hardest thing to accept.
It is, but once you do it,
yeah,
I feel like once you, it's almost like. I
think that's a part of the Buddhist mindset that I would want to learn. I am lacking in.
It's almost like you hear the expression "getting something off your chest,"
right?
Obviously that's just an expression.
It's hard to get to that point of getting something off your chest because you have to deal with different emotions at the moment of getting it off your chest. But once you do, nobody's got anything bad to say about it.
Exactly. But when you think about it, it's almost, it can be perceived as the hardest thing to do, but it's actually one of the easiest things to do. Letting go. I'll tell you this.
Please tell me the next song we play isn't going to be the Frozen song.
Damn.
Okay.
I got to find a new song now. No, I had this important conversation with my mom once, and I basically told her that for the longest time, I was truly depressed. I had so much sadness inside my heart from like 14 to 19 years old.
Right.
And she said, "Why do you think that is?" And I straight up told her, and trust me, it felt like a rock was on my chest holding me back.
Right.
And I said, it's because my dad wasn't a part of my life.
Yeah.
And that's something I never thought I'd say, because that's something that I've always held on to inside my head as like the main root to that evil,
right.
like that, of that sadness. And it's almost like it became a part of me that I identified with,
right.
It was like a leech, that sadness. Cause I mean, whenever sadness hits you, and I'm sure you know right off the bat what I'm talking about, it's like a fucking blanket.
Right.
That just clouds you,
Yeah.
It's hard to take it off.
Yeah.
But I said, I was an unhappy kid. I was an unhappy teenager because my dad wasn't a part of my life.
Right.
And I felt so much better just by saying that.
And you know how many people can't even identify with that?
Yeah.
I mean, they have that, but for them to be able to look at that and realize that that is their problem, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot to be able to look with those kinds of eyes.
Right.
It's, you know, I honestly gone through some depression, and I still don't know exactly all the things that were involved, but I did have, you know, issues between my parents separating, you know, and that, in that moment in time, whenever I was just living with my mom and my dad left, you know, and it's a whole different situation, but I was so used to having my dad around all the time.
Right.
You know, so that was, you know, I guess you kind of take it for granted when you have it like that all the time. And so whenever he was gone, and it wasn't significant, it wasn't a giant leap of difference of space, you know, we still talked, we still, you know, had our moments where we go visit him, but that was the one time whenever I was the most unhappy and depressed, and I'd go and seek for medical attention.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually I got over it, especially whenever I realized that my parents were better off with other people. It was good to not see them fight anymore. And as an adult myself, that's one of the things that made me realize the most important thing is, you know, for me to also focus on my happiness, because ultimately when you stay together for the kids.
Blink-182 song, by the way.
Right. When you stay together for the kids, and you're fighting all the time, that's doing way more damage than just being your own selves.
Right.
You know? Yeah. I mean, it's much easier to just stay together. It always is, just because no matter who you're with, it's easier because that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
But I do not condone it.
Right. But going back to what it was that I was saying, now you said that you went to medications.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time before that where you thought about, like, just talking about it before you, like, did you jump, like, were you like, I have a problem, I need to get it?
I wanted drugs.
Uh-huh.
I was around a certain group of people, but I was scared to death of drugs. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to do the illegal ones.
Right.
You know? Eventually one of the illegal ones was actually the one thing that helped me through everything.
Yeah.
But I turned to the doctor, and, you know, I was on different antidepressants, you know, and those were way worse for me than what I figured I should just do. You know, eventually, you know, because I did the antidepressants, then that wasn't working. So I'd try another antidepressant, and I get addicted to that, and it wasn't working for me, you know. And once I got off of the antidepressant, it was all hell.
Yeah.
Like, it was worse than originally, you know. And I was having some issues mentally, but that's a part of being a teenager.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned ultimately, that it was just my parents separating and being a teenager. If I had somebody to talk to, yes, ultimately I think that would have been the best thing. But the best thing to wean me off of where I was and what did was marijuana. And it was good for me, I think, in my opinion, back then when I did it. But it's not worth whatever else you've got going on that may, you know, like, if you've got a good job, I do not suggest, you know, like, it's ultimately one of those things that, you know, people can get psychologically addicted to and then fuck up everything else because they'd rather do that. And that's not everybody can do it.
Right.
You know, and, you know, now as an adult, I wouldn't want to do it just because I feel like I'd be too sleepy or, you know, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with me in my level of happiness anymore. I think it was just being a teenager. Right. So why add anything else? You know?
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things. I'm not saying teenagers should do drugs.
Right.
I think ultimately, like, what we're talking about is maybe we just do need to talk about it and get those tough stones off of our chest.
Yeah, I honestly, because when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was way too introverted. That's the word I'm thinking. That's the one I'm introverted. Is the fire one. Okay.
Yeah.
I always get introverted and extroverted mixed up, but
right. I was opposite.
I was big time introverted, and I no idea why. It was the most natural thing in the world to me. You know, some people are born athletes. Some people can memorize the entire Declaration of Independence.
Right.
Me, I'm a goddamn introvert, you know, and it was nothing I ever thought about. You know,
yeah, but you know, there's been benefits to that. I mean, clearly, you know what to say and at the right appropriate times.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up to be a decent fucking person. I mean, that's
and decency. That's subjective.
That's true.
You are certainly a decent person, but one thing about you is, you know, you're not crass.
Right.
You don't just speak your mind loosely. You don't open up, you know, before you have time to think about it. Me, on the other hand, naturally, I'm I'll just say whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. But the introversion that I had, it definitely just it put up a wall at the entire idea of opening up and letting go of those emotions. It was like mentally I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I had no idea why. I just thought it was just a part of who I was.
Right.
Got to the point where like every day I would be asked like, what's wrong? You're so quiet. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fucking great. I'm doing fine. I'm just I never understand. Okay. Whenever someone says, okay, I'm sure you don't deal with this, but I deal with this. Maybe you do deal with it. Someone says, you're quiet. Why are you so quiet? Like there's a fucking like I have a zipper on my mouth and
right.
Oh, and that's better. You know.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out for
yeah,
me.
Exactly. Like I didn't fucking know I had the zipper attached to my lips.
Right.
You know, the truth of the matter is I just have nothing interesting to talk about. I'm a boring fucking person.
Well, I think I think it's sometimes the stupidity of the conversation at hand. Yeah. Why do you want to add to that?
Yeah. It's same thing as like whenever people look at me and it's like, why do you look so sad? Do normal people just walk around with like these big shit-eating grins like constantly 24?
I kind of do, man. We're dangerous territory here.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
But that makes me think like, what do normal, like I'm going to use the bunny ears on this one. Normal people. What's so different about me than them, or what's so different about them than you? Like what's the line of separation? You know,
there's not. Everybody strives to be that. What's a word? That it's unreal thing. Mm-hmm. You know, like a straight line doesn't actually exist if everything's in atoms. Mm-hmm. You know, a plane. You know, abstract concept. Normal is an abstract concept, and people strive to be that, even though they're not really aware that it's an abstract concept, because they have their own insecurities. You know, I let my freak flag fly because that's me. That's original. There's no other fucking me. I'm going to do all the things that I am. And if nobody fucking likes it, then it's not really the people I want to be with anyway.
Right.
You know, I don't want to be around the people that don't like my freak flag because, man, that means they really don't like me.
Yeah.
I don't have any reason to be fake for anybody. I'm not trying to fake friends, not trying to, you know. Work is a different aspect depending on where you're at.
Right.
When you're in a career, that's a whole different ball game. I'm pretty real to myself, even at work, you know, but I can understand why somebody would have a particular character that they mostly portray, not necessarily being a fake person, but just kind of shining certain attributes. Like, okay, when you start dating, whether you realize it or not, you're not 100%.
Right.
You know, I try to be I try to converse it. It's obnoxious how I am early in a relationship, just because it's like, I'm going into detail about, okay, this probably isn't really how I am. And I'll speak to the person, communicate it 100%, because I want them to know, after a while, I'm going to get lazier about putting up anything that's, untrue. And I'm not wanting to be a fake person for anybody, because I don't want to have this certain personality, this certain persona, and then they go eventually and not really like who I really am. They only like the better parts of me that I've been showing.
Right.
And then they leave. Well, what the fuck was the purpose of all of that? The difference is, I think a lot of people might be wanting just that one thing out of a relationship, not anything. They don't want to go deep. Maybe it's just a sexual thing. Maybe they're just trying to get their kicks.
Could be.
On the other hand, me, I don't need all that. The kicks are great, but they got to be genuine.
Right. As I think all time with anyone is supposed to be genuine. Right. This is part of me letting another big rock off my chest. I haven't been in a relationship in a long time, long time. Almost. Okay, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to.
You don't have to.
I don't have to, but it's been a long time. But I do know that even though I haven't had like that one core relationship, there like that one person that I go to, my heart has opened up completely, and I've gained so many more people,
right?
That I would love just as much as I would that one core person, right, that I would open up to and I would be free with as I would, right, that one core person. You know what I mean? So that's why I truly believe that there should be nothing holding you back.
Right.
There should be no...
Well, luckily you haven't had to deal with a lot of bullshit too because of that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that. A person seems so great and so perfect. And most of us aren't skeptical enough. And we just dive into it and we put everything into it and we just get fucked so hard in the end. It's terrible.
Right.
And it's a lot of the times I wished that I hadn't even have dealt with that, but it also helped me learn more about myself in relationships. The difference in between probably me and you is there's wisdom and there's intelligence.
Yeah.
I learned through wisdom. Mm-hmm. I have to make the fucking mistakes in order to really get anything off of it.
Yeah. I can relate to that as well. I definitely wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for some of the fuck ups that I've done.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about relationships. I'm just talking about in life in general.
Right.
I've probably used up all of my fuck up cards. I think God.
Well, good. Then you're out.
I think God handed me a set number of cards, and He's like, "All right, you got this many fuck ups. Once you go past that one, you're done. You'll go wherever it is you deserve to go." And fucking by the time I was 20, I was like, "Well, these are my last one."
Yeah.
Shit. And then, that was just probably the roughest road I ever gone to. But you know what? It made me the man that I am today.
Right.
As I'm sure the women that we see turn us into the men that we become.
Right.
Our mothers and fathers turn us into the men or women that we become.
Right. Absolutely. Or transgendered. We don't want to leave out the transgendered.
I just want to say that the transgender community, the LGBT community, LGBTQ.
I don't know what the Q stands for.
Me neither.
Okay.
But God loves you. Okay. Never forget, God loves you. Anyways.
And if not, then we love you.
We love you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But shit, you threw me off. I don't even know what the hell I was even talking about now.
The men and women,
right? The men and women that we become. You know, we those mistakes that we make they're just as important as those positive or even negative influences that we get from people. You know what I mean? Like life is just one big fucking fuck up waiting to happen, but
Right.
eventually after that you just learn and your life becomes
Life is suffering, man.
Yeah.
That's all we do here. We suffer. Luckily, we've got dopamine and serotonin. Otherwise, this would be a shit festival.
and a whole lot of chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, man.
Anyways, man, I think I feel like I'm ready to wrap this up, but unless there's anything that you wanted to bring up.
No. I mean, not unless we brought in another song. And
Well, I kind of feel bad because I threw in my song, but I kind of had like a whole thing that I had to go around it. But, what's some, like, of all the things that we've been talking about, like, what's a song that you feel?
Okay. Well, I had walked to go get something to eat today.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was listening to my headphones to just get me in the right mood to start the podcast. And with what we were talking about earlier, that vibe, that wind, there was a song that was playing that I really felt connected with. I felt like my mind was picking up on certain aspects of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
I think more so instead of it being a supernatural phenomena thing, I think we just notice things differently when we're under a certain beat or under a certain type of music, a certain song that has our feel, we just kind of pick up on certain things that we didn't before.
Right.
And I was, the song that I recently downloaded, it's very peaceful, and it's ideal to meditate to, in my opinion. And just to walk down the street, it made me feel great. And let's see what you guys can pick up, what kind of vibe you get off of this.
Okay.
All right, here we go. right. That was from the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. Band Orbital, and their song was Halcyon. I don't know how to pronounce it. Halcyon and on.
Okay. That was on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack?
That was actually
the first one or the second one?
The first one. Okay. Right after Liu Kang fights Shang Tsung, that's whenever this song starts to come into play. And then like right after that scene, it's all bright and there's kids everywhere playing in the area and they're all running and stuff. That song is hitting its prime moment in that part right there.
What's funny is, and this kind of goes to what I was saying earlier, whenever you hear something, it comes back to you,
right?
Whenever that don't that came in, I was like,
knew it.
I knew it. I just couldn't remember that it was from Mortal Kombat.
Right.
I knew it before. But anyways,
that bass
though. Truthfully, before that part came in,
right,
and just listening to it, like I was going through some kind of some stuff in my head, like, I was seeing some faces.
Were you meditating? Were you reflecting?
If that's what you want to call it. But I'm sitting here and I was listening to the song. I had my eyes closed, and all I could see was just these faces kind of like coming in from like a corner. Like they were like they just come around the corner and I see them again. And then I feel like I'm walking towards that corner, and then they would disappear, but then I would be on another sort of like walkway, and then they would just be around the corner again.
Right.
Like there's just something like this feeling of like just something that's on the other side. And whenever it picked up, I felt like I was finally going, like it wasn't like a fucking maze or
right.
An endless circle.
Everything was clear.
Everything was clear, and I finally was able to move forward,
Yeah.
And I guess the word, I don't know if hope is a good word for it, but like, I guess maybe hope probably would be like, knowing that it's going to come.
It's an inspirational ass.
Inspirational.
Yeah.
I guess is pretty much the word.
It's really like that vibe that I get off of it is pretty beautiful. It's it's something that I'd want to listen to and inspire me to do something right afterwards. Just like before we went to our shows, we would always play Judith.
Right.
That would set us in the mood, and I think that's probably a good track to set you in the mood for anything you want to do, in my opinion.
I agree.
Especially if it has anything to do that's peaceful.
Yeah.
Or fighting. Fuck. Like that would put me in the mood for some jujitsu.
There's only one song that is appropriate for fighting, and I'm not even going to sing it. Okay, it's from Mortal Kombat. Okay. And the guy says all the characters' names.
Right.
Johnny Cage.
Yeah, is that a taste of all things to come? Or is that a different one?
I don't know what it's called.
I think that is. Mortal Kombat. Oh, man.
Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Kano, Sonya Blade, Raiden. Mortal Kombat.
Din, 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 din.
Oh, that was fun.
That's a treat for you all. Just
I held back. I just want to say that. I held back.
You did. Especially the Mortal Kombat.
Ah, shit, that's fun.
All right, so after this podcast, we're gonna watch that movie, right?
Absolutely. I think we got to get some pizza, and I think we got to watch some Mortal Kombat.
Absolutely, and then Walking Dead tonight.
Walking Dead tonight.
Oh man, I'm excited. Will we see Glenn?
Probably not.
Will Glenn come back? We're hoping. I don't know.
Probably not.
We don't know when this is gonna air, so maybe you guys have some answers on Glenn that we don't.
Oh man,
they're thinking, "No, dude. Sorry, Glenn's dead."
That would be such a buzzkill.
Oh man,
but it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Anyways,
right now we're just letting you know how old the podcast is
pretty much.
for whenever you decide to tune in.
I feel pretty comfortable to wrap this up.
All right, how are we gonna wrap this up, man? First wrap up, we didn't talk about it.
We'll just let this one go, and we'll let you decide how to end it. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye. And good luck.